Okay, so you know how everyone's like obsessed with AI and everything these days?
Right.
Well, get this. Congress is like seriously considering putting AM radios in all new cars for emergencies.
Wow.
Yeah, like those things our grandparents used to have.
Right.
It's crazy, right? So, we're diving into this whole debate today with this piece by Curt Robbins.
Yeah, Robbins.
He's a senior tech writer.
Yeah, and I think what's so fascinating about this whole thing
Yeah.
is that it really gets at like this question of, in our like super technology-driven world right now,
Yeah.
how do we make sure people can actually communicate when like something really bad happens?
Exactly. And Robbins does not hold back
Oh, no.
on his thoughts about Congress, like potentially hitting rewind on like all this tech progress.
Right.
He's all about innovation. And to him, I don't think AM radio really screams like cutting edge.
He makes the point that like AM radio, it's like it has its place in history for sure.
For sure.
But to like base our entire emergency communication system around it now,
Right.
when was the last time you even like turned on an AM station?
Oh my gosh. I know I'm way more likely to get like an alert about a flash sale
Right.
on my phone than like an actual emergency.
Yeah.
Robbins even jokes about, getting those notifications for like cat videos
Mm.
when there could be like a tornado
Right.
like on its way.
It's true.
Which honestly is
Yeah.
not that far off.
And that's like the heart of it.
Yeah.
We're just like drowning in information all the time.
Right.
But what if like all those channels we use every single day, what if they just like went dark?
Like imagine a huge storm.
Exactly. Or the power grid goes down.
Oh.
No more internet.
Yeah. That's kind of terrifying when you put it like that. It's
Yeah.
like those movies
Right.
where some alien EMP blast like shuts down everything.
Right. Wipes out all the technology.
And throws the world into chaos.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, maybe not quite that dramatic.
Okay.
But Robbins does have a point about like thinking about those situations where our reliance on all this complex technology could backfire.
Yeah.
Like in those situations, AM radio,
Okay.
because it's so simple.
Yeah.
It can work without the internet,
Right.
without cell service.
Right.
It could actually be its saving grace.
So it's like AM radio's biggest weakness right now, like being old school,
Yeah.
becomes its strength.
Exactly.
That's so interesting.
It's true.
It's true. He even he brings up CB radio too. Like imagine
like that.
getting an emergency alert
Yeah.
from a rubber duck,
It's definitely a memorable image.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think the larger point is for emergency communication to be effective,
Uh-huh.
it has to actually reach people.
Yes, exactly.
And if it's only reaching like a tiny percentage of the population,
Right.
how effective is it really?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially these days when, let's face it,
Yeah.
a lot of people get their news and information from social media.
Oh, totally. And that brings us to his suggestion.
With that.
Okay, so he suggests sending text message alerts,
Okay.
telling everyone to turn on their AM radios.
I see.
But he's like realistic about it.
Yeah.
He's like, there's no guarantee that we would all actually listen.
It's like telling someone who streams everything
I know.
to dust off their old vinyl record player.
Right.
It's just not going to happen for a lot of people.
It's so true.
Yeah. It's a really interesting challenge, though.
Yeah.
How do we use all the amazing technology we have
Yeah.
while still being prepared for when it might fail?
It's like we're stuck between like the future and the past,
Right.
trying to prepare for this like uncertain future.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because Robbins doesn't just leave us hanging.
Okay.
He offers some other solutions.
Okay, I'm listening. What does he suggest?
One really promising option he talks about is satellite communication,
Okay.
which we're already seeing in some smartphones now, like those
Yeah.
emergency SOS features
Yeah.
that use satellites when there's no cell service.
All right. Have you heard about those new satellite features? They're pretty cool.
Yeah, it's some pretty impressive technology.
Right. So maybe there's hope for us tech people after all.
Right.
But I feel like he's also saying that Congress could be aiming even higher.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This whole thing with AM radio, it's not about nostalgia.
Right.
It's about looking at how we prepare for emergencies as the world changes.
Yeah.
He says that instead of like clinging to old technology,
Right.
even if we mean well,
Yeah.
Congress should be investing in more innovative communication systems.
So are we talking about like some next level
Yo,
sci-fi communication system?
maybe not telepathy just yet.
Okay.
But he makes a really interesting analogy to explain what he means.
Okay. I love a good analogy.
All right.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so imagine, instead of AM radio, Imagine if we relied on carrier pigeons
Your pigeons. Yeah.
to deliver emergency alerts.
Okay, now that's a visual I can get behind. A
Right.
bunch of pigeons like swooping in to warn us about like a hurricane or something.
Right.
It's a little hard to imagine though, right?
Yeah,
In the world of like instant notifications and everything.
exactly. It
Mhm.
seems kind of crazy
Yeah.
to think about using carrier pigeons now,
Yeah.
especially with all the technology we have.
But that's Robin's point, right?
Exactly.
Clinging to AM radio when there might be better options out there?
Right.
It's kind of like choosing pigeons over text messages.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah.
It shows how we need to be adaptable
Yeah.
and think ahead when it comes to emergencies.
For sure.
We can't just keep using old tech, especially when emergencies themselves are changing too.
And speaking of changing emergencies,
Yeah.
Robbins talks about some pretty intense scenarios.
Oh, yeah.
Like, those sci-fi movies where they have those electromagnetic pulses, those EMPs
Right.
that wipe out all technology.
Yeah, it's enough to make you want to go off the grid.
Seriously.
Right.
It makes you want to, like, bury your phone in a lead box or something.
Well, burying your phone might be a bit much,
Okay.
but EMPs are a real thing.
Yeah.
A strong EMP blast could really mess with our electronics.
Really?
Yeah, like on a huge scale.
Wow.
Our smartphones, computers, even AM radios.
Oh, wow.
They could all be knocked out.
Okay, now that is terrifying.
Yeah.
So what are we supposed to do? Like, should we all just, like, become hermits and live off the grid?
You don't have to go that far.
Okay.
Robin's point is to make us think about communication systems that can handle anything.
Okay.
He says we shouldn't just rely on tech that EMPs can knock out.
Okay, so what else is there?
Well, he mentioned satellite communication,
Okay.
especially for those really big emergencies.
Right.
Because unlike cell towers and power grids,
Yeah.
satellites aren't as affected by stuff happening down here.
That makes sense. They're like floating up in space.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But even with satellites, I feel like Robbins is challenging those in charge,
Oh, totally.
Like he's saying, hey, Congress, if you're serious about this whole emergency preparedness thing,
Right.
maybe you should invest in some really powerful communication systems.
It's exactly systems that can handle anything,
Yeah.
even the worst case scenarios.
Right.
He's saying, don't just stick with old technology.
Okay.
Even if you have good intentions,
Right.
push the boundaries,
Yeah.
find new solutions.
So it's not just about having a plan. It's about having the right plan.
Exactly. A plan that uses the best, most resilient tech we have.
Wow. This whole AM radio thing has really spiraled, hasn't it?
I know.
We've gone from old technology to alien threats and everything in between.
Right.
But it all comes down to one question.
What's that?
Are we really ready for whatever might happen?
That's the question, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
And not just ready in a general sense,
Yeah.
but ready with communication systems that can handle anything.
Right.
From natural disasters to,
Uh-huh.
I don't know, maybe even aliens.
It's a-
Robbins reminds us that we can't predict the future,
Yeah.
but we can be ready to adapt.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have to recognize that technology is amazing,
for sure.
but it's not perfect.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best solutions are the ones that have always worked.
Right.
Like the old school stuff.
It's about having a plan, being flexible, and maybe even getting a little creative.
Exactly.
So basically
Right.
what you're saying is maybe we shouldn't throw away those old walkie-talkies just yet.
Well,
Or like learn Morse code.
maybe not Morse code,
Okay.
but you get the idea.
Yeah.
We need to have options,
Right.
not just rely on one thing.
So as much as we love our smartphones
Right.
and we use them for like everything,
Uh-huh.
it's good to remember that they might not always work.
Exactly, especially in a real emergency.
And that's where Robbins gives us his final piece of advice.
Oh, really?
And it's actually really simple.
Okay, I'm listening.
Okay, What?
Don't wait for a crisis to happen.
Okay.
Think about this stuff now.
So like what should we do?
Yeah.
Should we go buy AM radios?
Not so.
Okay, should we stock up on walkie-talkies?
It's not about one specific thing.
Okay.
It's about knowing what could go wrong with the tech we use
Right.
and having other options.
Okay.
Maybe that's like a backup plan for your phone,
Right.
like a solar charger
Okay.
or one of those hand crank weather radios.
Right.
Or maybe it's about talking to people in your community
Yeah.
and figuring out ways to communicate that don't need technology at all.
Right. Like sometimes the simplest solutions
gets
are
great.
the best ones. Right.
Exactly.
So the takeaway is be prepared
Yeah.
in every way.
Have a plan and be ready to adapt.
Because when things go wrong,
Uh-huh.
communication is everything.
Exactly.
And if we can connect with each other,
Yeah,
it could make all the difference.
it could save lives.
So this deep dive into AM radio,
Right.
it's been about so much more.
It really has.
It's about being prepared for anything.
Yeah, in this crazy tech world we live in.
We've looked at how our communication systems could fail
Right.
and what other options are out there.
Exactly. And we've challenged some assumptions along the way.
Hopefully we've given everyone something to think about.
Yeah, take a look at your own emergency plan.
Right.
See if it's really up to date.
Because whether it's a natural disaster or
Yeah.
the power grid going down
Mm-hmm.
or even aliens, who knows?
Being able to communicate.
Right.
Yeah.
That's key.
It's essential.
So as you go about your day today,
Yeah.
think about how you're connected to the world
Okay.
and ask yourself, if those connections were gone, would you be ready?
That's a great question to think about.
And that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.